Welcome to Fireside Giants, a featured podcast by Empire Sports Media. I'm your host, Alexander Wilson, and my co-hosts, Anthony Rivardo and Mike Iarapino. Give us a follow on Twitter if you haven't already, Alex Wilson ESM, Anthony_Rivardo, and Mike_NYY. Also, please smash the subscribe button on YouTube and leave us a review on iTunes for the podcast. We put a lot of effort into these videos for you guys, and we really want you to enjoy every single one of them. And today we're going to be doing a little bit of updating on, the current whereabouts of the Giants and the compensatory picks that they just collected on Tuesday afternoon, and a little bit of Leonard Williams, Derek Brown, and then some mock draft. We're going to do the first 1 and 2 rounds of the mock draft and who we think they're going to grab. So to start with the compensatory picks, they gained the number 99 overall pick in the draft today, a third round pick. That was basically Gettleman's entire thing here. He wants to, re-sign Leonard Williams, or at least we hope he does, because otherwise he'd be forfeiting that number 68 overall pick with no return. And with the number 99 overall pick, they get it from Landon Collins leaving in free agency last year. Do you think they can find anyone good there? I know there's a bunch of really good players, and they got, Darius Slayton and Ryan Connolly, two really good players, or at least we hope to be in the future. And they got them later in the draft. So, the number 99 overall pick can be something special, can be something of quality. They just have to go out and find it. Do you guys think, that the Giants can find somebody like that in this draft? And are you looking at a specific position?
I would say...
Go ahead, Mike.
All right. I would say absolutely to that. I mean, 99 overall, there's much talent in this draft. I think this is a deep cornerback class. Of course, wide receivers we know about, even offensive tackle. I know there's the top 5 guys that are really good, but even after that, there's some maybe diamonds in the rough that we can find later in the drafts that might be developmental projects, but if they are worked out and coached correctly, they could be good players as well. So yeah, they can definitely get the right guy. I mean, I'm not confident they'll take the right guy, but they definitely will have the opportunity to take somebody that can be a really good player for this team.
Yeah, it's definitely good to have a third-round pick now that we, because we lost it with the Leonard Williams trade, and that's pretty much what this whole thing is about, is we finally have a third-round pick, but it's basically a fourth-round pick because it's after all the teams pick already. But, 99, at least it is in the top 100. You can get a top 100 prospect with that pick guaranteed, so that's good. And, O'Shane Ximines was a 96th overall pick, or 95th maybe last year. So, and he's looking like a solid player already. So they can definitely find somebody. It's just a matter of if they will.
What do you guys think of O'Shane? I think he's a little underrated. He didn't really earn all of the snaps you would hope he would in his first year. He did get a decent amount of playing time, but he had 4.5 sacks. 4.5 sacks is decent for a rookie, especially coming from, was this still a D1 or D2 school in Old Dominion? Do you guys know?
No, I couldn't tell you.
I don't know, I think
it was
small.
a D1 school. I think it was a small D1 school. It wasn't anything special. And him coming into the NFL and putting together a 4.5 sack season, especially on a pass rush that didn't really have much to begin with, is pretty good. I think that he's a candidate to have a really good second year sophomore season. Relevant to Lorenzo Carter, who just kind of hit a dud in his sophomore year. I really hope that O'Shane can come into himself. He was a really athletic player coming out of college in Old Dominion, and I think he can be, at least a rotational piece in the defensive line. Do you guys think he could, also be that kind of guy for the Giants?
Yeah, I mean, he was somebody that I started watching about a year ago in college, and I absolutely loved him. I had him going to the Giants in the 4th round, I think it was, for my mock draft. They took him in the 3rd round. That's fine with me. I still think he's a good player. And you know what? Maybe he fell because of the talent he was playing against. But when you watched him on tape, you were just like, this guy is a lot better than everybody else on the field.
Oh, yeah.
And you're not going to stand out at Old Dominion because you have good technique. It's because you're just an athletic freak compared to everybody else. So I was pretty satisfied. He had some good games last year. I think back to the Tampa game in week 4, or week 3 when Daniel Jones had his first start. He had a good game there and some couple other ones. So yeah, he just got to work on his consistency. Probably has to get his body used to the NFL. It's a different speed as to what Old Dominion was playing last year. So he'll get used to it, and I think this could be a big year for him.
Yeah, one thing I really like about O'Shane Ximines is he's a very high IQ football player. We saw it a lot in the preseason and a little bit in the regular season. He's got the awareness to get his hands up and bat down passes, and that's very useful. Having somebody who's got the intelligence to bat down a pass, that's a dead play right there. That's going for no yards. So he's a high IQ player. He definitely showed flashes, and unlike Lorenzo Carter, I'm hoping that he does build on his rookie season and going into his sophomore year. Hopefully he can take a step forward.
Absolutely. And, Carter is one of those players. He has like that freaky long frame and incredible bend going on the edge. I just don't really understand why he hasn't been able to take that step forward that we all expected him to in 2019. And like that's where my concern lies with him is I don't know if he can, be that elite pass rusher. I think he can be a pretty solid rotational guy at this point, but it looks like the Giants are heading towards, Jadeveon Clowney in free agency or, a guy like Zach Bond in the second round or late first round pick. If they trade up, I'm going to talk about him later in our mocks. But Carter only had 4.5 sacks last year, and while that's okay, it's nothing crazy, but it's decent. It's decent. 25 solo tackles, 13 quarterback hits. So that's a number I want to hit on because him and Jadeveon Clowney had the same amount of quarterback hits. Obviously, vastly different players. Clowney's being double teamed constantly. I want to get that across. I'm not comparing them in any sense. Or I see Anthony looking at me. But Clowney is, a guy that will draw double teams consistently and will lock down an edge. He's also an incredible run defender. And if you add a guy like him and then have O'Shane Ximenez and Lorenzo Carter on the other side, we expect them to take another step forward. And this is where the Giants are, and they need more talent at the position, and they need to address it. I'm pretty sure Dave Gettleman said a few months ago, everybody from the East to the West Coast knows that the Giants need more pass rushers. They need more pass rush talent, and that's the reality of the situation. If they don't upgrade that position, we will be watching another very long season ahead of us. Look at what Nick Bosa did for San Francisco last year as a rookie. He arguably made them a Super Bowl caliber team. So just keep that in mind, when we're looking at offensive, defensive edge rushers and stuff like that. But to move on to Derek Brown, this is a guy that Dave Gettleman is enamored by, apparently. Do you guys like Derek Brown? I know. They're looking at him as a potential guy that, moves around the defense, can rush the passer, can stop the run. He's a really big body. Kind of reminds you of Dexter Lawrence, but a little bit smaller on the smaller side. Still a really big guy, though, obviously. What do you guys think about him?
I would not take him 4th overall. I'm just going to come out and say it. I mean, that would be a pretty, not like a huge reach in my mind, but it's definitely not what this team needs. I talked about it in my last video I did for this channel and how they have enough run stuffers. We have Dexter Lawrence and probably Leonard Williams and then BJ Hill and Dalvin Tomlinson, all these guys to stop the run. And then you're going to sign a guy or draft a guy like Derek Brown 4th overall. That would make no sense to me. If they traded back, I guess I could live with it more, but at the same time, it's just not a position of need, and I do think personally he's a little bit overrated right now. I did tell you I like Javon Kinlaw more, so I would be pretty disappointed if they took Derek Brown 4th overall.
I'll say I do like Derek Brown a lot on a different team. I don't think he has a place on this one. I think we've invested way too much into this defensive line, and it would just be foolish to keep investing. I think it's not really that impactful of an area on your team. It definitely can be, but I think ours is already impactful enough if we retain Leonard Williams. You've got Dalvin Tomlinson, who's proven to be an excellent player, and you've also got Dexter Lawrence, who looks like a rising star. There's only 3 players playing defensive line in a 3-4 defense, and if you're going 4-3, BJ Hill is a pretty solid player as well. I don't think you need to add a 5th star-studded defensive lineman into the mix. How many defensive linemen are we going to spend top 2-round picks on? Because that would be our 5th, wouldn't it? I don't know. I think it's ridiculous that Gettleman keeps going after defensive linemen, and if he does draft him with the 4th pick, I think it'll be a colossal fail.
I agree. I mean, realistically, the only way I'm taking Derek Brown, and this is a very theoretical scenario, or hypothetical rather, is if they trade back. If they trade back and they're really in love with this guy, then I see, how it would make sense from their perspective. From my perspective, I'm going to fucking burn the team down and the buildings that they practice in if they actually go out and grab a guy like Brown. Because reality is, if they let Leonard Williams go, I will be incredibly angry. And the only reason that is, besides his value and talent, is because they gave up the 68th overall pick in a lost season to test out a defensive lineman. That's ridiculous. Gettleman, that's a fireable offense for Gettleman, right?
He would do the same thing Derek Brown does. It would make no sense, really.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Opinion.
That's what I'm saying. It would make no sense. Because how do you go out and bring in a guy like Williams, then let him go? Because apparently they're, according to Ian Rappaport, right, from NFL Network, they are not close to a contract extension. Contrary to popular belief, they are not close to coming together. And it seems like Williams' agents want to test the market before the Giants re-sign or even try and attempt to offer him a deal that's worth his while, right? They want to see what other people are valuing him at. And that's
as they should.
Exactly. That makes complete sense to me. I'm a little scared about this because, Gettleman said, I have rhino hide skin. I don't give a shit if you have rhino hide skin. You just gave up the 68th overall pick, which is a talented player. Like we've seen. We've seen him get Ryan Connolly, get Darius Slayton, O'Shane Eximitis. 68th overall pick is a quality player. That's Chase Claypool right there. That's a big body red zone target right there. He's giving up for no reason. Giving up for what? For Leonard Williams to come in and help them lose 4 more games to close out the season?
Yeah, I mean his answer as to when they asked him at the podium, why did you make this trade? The answer still makes no sense to me. He's like, oh, we wanted to get a better look at him. I'm like, dude, he plays in the same stadium as you, and you have all the film you'd want to watch this guy. Like, for what reason would you do this?
Exactly. He could have said, right? And the Jets play a 3-4. I think they played a 3-4 under Greg Williams.
I think
they
so.
did. But so all he did. He could have just waited until the Giants played the Jets and then evaluated him in a similar style of system in the same goddamn building. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, he didn't have to do this. He didn't have to. I'm sure Mike McGannon picked up the phone and Dave Gettleman's like, "Hey, Mike, I'll offer you the 68th overall pick for Leonard Williams." And Mike's like, Mike hangs up the phone for a second. He looks at his executives and he's like, "Yo, this guy's an idiot. We're about to unload this guy for a 3rd round pick, and he has no idea that nobody else has called." And then Mike picks back the phone. He's like, "Hey, Gettleman, hey Dave, there's a bunch of other teams calling us. Why don't you throw in the 4th overall pick too? And we'll make it a deal." And Dave's like, "Oh my God, I have no negotiation skills. That sounds like an amazing idea. Let's do this. If we re-sign him before the new league year starts, it's a 4th round pick. But if we don't, it's a 5th round pick. I think that's a pretty good deal." Mike's like, "Dave, you got a deal, man. You got a really good deal. You're getting a great player, high charisma, great character." And here we got Dave Gettleman over here is like being swindled like a freaking lollipop. And Mike McGagnon, who's like, did he get fired yet? Or is he still there?
I do think it was Joe Douglas at the time. I was going to say something, but I think it was. Yeah.
Right. Even so, Joe Douglas, it's the same concept. Dave Gettleman got freaking swindled. As he continues to get swindled, in these trades, it's really concerning to me. Honestly, like that's a fireable offense if you're not, taking that seriously. And Pat Shurmur over here is letting it all happen because he's scared he's going to be fired.
It could have been a move, honestly. Looking back on it, I just thought of this. I'm sure some other people have had this point as well, but it could have been 2 guys trying to save their jobs. I mean, honestly, like Leonard Williams isn't an immediate impact to your team, but this, 3rd round pick for next year is going to serve Gettleman no purpose if he's not here next year. So maybe he made that move at the time thinking like, oh crap, like my job's on the line here. Let me try and get a good player and give away a 3rd round pick for him.
You're 100% right.
I'll say this much, though, with the Leonard Williams trade, they could just tag and trade him. And if the market is so competitive for him, like we're hearing, and if there's so many teams who are ready to pursue him in free agency, there's a good chance they can get that 3rd round pick back. They'd be moving back about 10 spots or so, but there's a good chance they're able to get a 3rd round pick in exchange for Leonard Williams. They'll just have to franchise tag him first. And I mean, that's a good deal to me. Maybe if the market's that competitive, maybe Gettleman squeezes out a 2nd round pick and looks like a genius. I don't think that's going to happen, but there is a chance that he's got a larger plan for this than we expected. I think he wants to sign him long term and keep him around forever. But if he doesn't, he can definitely tag and trade him, and maybe he can get something decent out of that.
Right, and I see what you're saying there, and that makes sense to me. And the deadline is coming up, so the transition tag would allow other teams to match the Giants' offer. And then get him at a higher price. However, the franchise tag I think is about $2 million less for a defensive tackle than it is for a pass rusher, and that's kind of where Gettleman's looking. If they franchise tag him as a defensive tackle, it's only about $13 million, I think. That's where they're looking. But Leonard Williams is a management. They're trying to make sure that he goes out as a pass rusher, which I don't think they can do personally. He doesn't have that. He is not known as a pass rusher. He's known as a run stopper, interior defensive guy. So we'll see what happens. There's a lot of time left. I guess a week, not much time with Gettleman. Everything is like in slow motion with him. So now I kind of want to dive into the mock drafts. So Anthony, I'm going to have you start with your 1st and 2nd picks in the draft to kind of give us a little bit about what you think they're going to do and why they're going to do it.
Okay, so for my mock draft, I was planning on going third, so I was going to be different from the two of you because yours are pretty similar, but that's fine. I can go first, but that just explains why mine is weirder. I predict we go to the sixth pick, we trade back, and we still end up with Isaiah Simmons there. And then with the extra second round pick that we got in that trade, we're going to trade up back into the first round and select Austin Jackson, the offensive tackle, towards the end of the first round. And I think that is definitely a possibility. It's a long shot, but regardless, I think even if we don't move back, Isaiah Simmons should be the pick at number 4. I think the guy is a Swiss Army knife, but on steroids. Not the Swiss Army knife that Jabril Peppers is, because he was called that too coming out of college. It's better than that. Simmons has the size, the strength, and the athleticism. And he's 6'3", 238 pounds. He's a true linebacker size. He's not a safety. He might be a little lean, and maybe he'll have to put on a little more weight. But I mean, the difference that you can get from him versus any other linebacker is uncanny because he's got such elite man coverage skills. He can run with tight ends. I mean, you're basically taking the tight end out of the game. And if you look at the top teams with their top tight ends, like the Ravens, the 49ers, the Chiefs, their tight ends play a huge role. Wow, that was a loud horn.
Whoa.
Their tight ends play a huge role in their offenses. And with Isaiah Simmons, you can basically take that tight end out of the game. And then if you do trade back up into the first round, you can get that offensive tackle. I know, Alex, you have the statistics on how badly Daniel Jones has been beaten, so you can attest to that. I think it's definitely important that the Giants, whether it be at the end of the first round or at the second round, they got to get an offensive tackle within the first 2 rounds.
Right. And I'll tell you guys a little bit about how bad Daniel Jones was protected in 2019 right now. So with my guys, and just hit on what you said, Anthony, a little bit more. I love Simmons, and what you're proposing is not weird at all. It's a very realistic possibility that the Giants can trade back 1 or 2 spots and still land Simmons, especially with Detroit really needing a quarterback like Jeff Okudah and Chase Young probably going number 2. It's realistic to think that the Chargers might want to leapfrog Miami and land Tua or Justin Herbert, whoever it might be, and the Giants trading back and still getting one of the best playmakers on defense in this draft. And then being able to pair those second rounders and maybe get a guy like Austin Jackson, Josh Jones, maybe they could package all those 7th-round picks. They have 4 7th-round picks. Package all of them. Just give them all away and see what you could do. See how far you can move up. Maybe 1 spot extra. Who knows? But the reality is the Giants really need a defensive playmaker and an offensive tackle. So they're going to have to adjust that in some way. And that's kind of where I'm going to go with my mock draft. So in the first round, the Giants stay put. They get Tristan Wirfs, and Gettleman is enamored by Wirfs. This guy is an athletic freak, and he'd be the perfect right tackle for the Giants. His elite physical traits, this guy can squat a bus, like ridiculous amount of weight. He's a plant, like he's like cement. When he's in his stance, nobody can move this guy. He had a 4.8 40-yard dash. I think it was the best of all offensive tackles. The guy is physically gifted, and he's really, really smooth in his movements, and that's what I really like about him. He's not an explosive blocker. He's not going to Quentin Nelson people using that just in a way. Like he's not going to bury people on the ground, but can contain people. He's powerful, and he's really good at just maintaining his stance and his balance. And that's what I really like about him. He's really good in outside zone sets. So Saquon Barkley, they were trying to run him up the gut a ton in 2019, and that's not how he's used, right? He's not used in that way. I don't understand why Shermer's running him halfback dives up the middle. Saquon Barkley needs to be given space and time to see the field and then bounce it outside or cut inside. That is what he's good at. Wirfs can set the edge on those outside zone blocks, and I really like him in that way. And just to hit on what you were mentioning before, Ant, with Daniel Jones, he ranked 34th in the NFL last season in protection rate at 72.3%. So he was only protected on 72.3% of actual snaps, and that's or other coverage passes, coverage sets. That's really concerning to me because with a rookie quarterback and now going into his sophomore season, the Giants really need to make sure that he's protected to the max. And getting a guy like Wirfs, who's athletic and just incredibly smooth in his play style, sounds really good to me. So that's my first round pick. My second round pick is Zach Bond out of Wisconsin. If this was to, come to fruition, they would have Bond and Ryan Connolly, both from Wisconsin. They both know each other. This guy Bond is an incredible player, and he's really diverse. He's not like Isaiah Simmons linebacker style, but he's a little bit different. He's more of a pass rusher in the sense that he's smaller, but he has some bend on this. This guy has some incredible bend and athleticism. He had 12.5 sacks last year as a middle linebacker. He can set the edge, and he's really good at getting around offensive tackles and swimming them, and just bending around them. He's really, really fast, and he's also a sideline to sideline linebacker. He can drop back in coverage. He's smooth and fluid in his movements. I really like him. Coming into this draft, he might even sneak into the top of the first round, but he's a player that the Giants, if they want to go offensive tackle with the 4th overall pick, and they can land a guy like Bond early in the first round or late in the second round. He had 19 and a half tackles for a loss last year. He's incredible. Second team associate, press All-American, first team All Big Ten honors. He had an interception, broke up 2 passes, caused 2 fumbles. This guy can do it all. Don't sleep on him. He's one of these guys that's climbing up my board a lot. So, you're going to probably hear about him more as the draft gets closer. But if the Giants can land him in the second round, I'd be really happy about that. Okay, Mike, I want to let you get to it. Who's your first round pick?
All right. Oh, I think we know this because I've been saying it for, the last couple months. But I'm sticking with Andrew Thomas. I mean, Andrew Thomas has been really good since his freshman year. I love his run blocking. He just, some left tackles and right tackles sometimes have a tough time getting to that second level and blocking the linebackers and safeties. But Andrew Thomas, for some reason, being how heavy he is just really nimble on his feet and can get to that second level. So he would definitely help the run game as well. And he was rarely getting beat in pass protections when I was watching him. I probably watched about 4 or 5 full games of him. Only got beat maybe a few times. Didn't really give up a sack from what I saw. So the fact that this guy's naturally been good since a freshman and he's probably just been getting better every year. And yeah, there's a lot of guys getting hyped now like Wirfs because of the combine. And Andrew Thomas didn't have a tremendous combine, but his measurements were good. That's pretty important. And he did all right. He wasn't great, but didn't get the publicity that Mekhi Becton or Tristan Wirfs got. But I do like Wirfs. I could definitely be on board with that 4th overall. Even like Jedrick Wills. Of course, I like Andrew Thomas the most. I can deal with any 3 of those picks, even Isaiah Simmons, if they go about it the right way and find ways to address tackle a different way. So my second round pick would be Trayvon Diggs, another guy I've talked about a lot. So am I confident he slips to the second round? Not too much, but I like him a lot. He's 6'1", he's 205. He's just got this crazy length to him, and he's not the fastest guy in the world, but when you have strides like him and ball skills that he does and instincts that he does, I think it's going to be a great pick. And so many Giants fans think that we're safe with Sam Beal and DeAndre Baker next year, and then slot cornerback.
We're not.
That's going to be next year. We're not. Yeah, exactly. So you can never have too many cornerbacks. And when I hear people say oh, we have those guys, I don't know. I want to be optimistic about them. I honestly think Sam Beal is just a guy. That's just me. But I think DeAndre Baker actually might have a good year too. That's what I'm hoping for. He definitely has the talent for it. So when I look at Trayvon Diggs, I'm like, this is a guy that can play on the outside next to DeAndre Baker. And if Sam Beal doesn't pan out, then it's a 3rd round pick. I mean, who cares? It happened 2 or 3 years ago at this point. So you move on. He has injury concerns and whatnot. And Trayvon Diggs is a guy that's played wide receiver most of his life. His brother is Stephon Diggs on the Vikings, obviously. And They moved him to cornerback in 2017. So he's relatively new to this position, and he was just really good in college. And of course, he has a good team around him and whatnot. He would be better in a zone type defense, a team that plays primarily zone defense. But he can play man as well. I saw him defend a lot of deep balls and man coverage very nicely. So I'd be thrilled with that pick. I'm just not sure if he slips to the second round.
Right. And I like the idea. I think Sam Beal is a complete bust at this point. I think it's time to give up on him. The guy can't stay on the field. And when he was on the field last year, it was essentially his rookie season. He looked like trash. Him and Corey Ballantyne both were they were like, nope, you guys can, give water to the starters. And I'm really hoping that DeAndre Baker can take that next step forward this season. He was a great cornerback at Georgia, and he's really good at man coverage. I just don't understand why James Bettcher was trying to move players around into positions that they're not familiar with. You know what I mean? Look, we're looking at a guy like Baker who is, traditionally a man cover corner. And he's trying to play him on off-ball coverage, and he looks lost. The guy just running in circles, getting burned the first half of the season. The second half, he looked much better, right? He looked much better in the second half, specifically the last 3 or 4 games of the season where he really picked it up once Janoris Jenkins was cut. Suddenly DeAndre Baker's our number 1 corner. That is extremely concerning to me, And we have to imagine that they are going to address this position, whether it's to trade out Trayvon Diggs or Byron Jones or James Bradbury. I'm seeing reports that James Bradbury, the Giants aren't willing to spend high on him. The guy can't tackle. The guy is
Did Gettleman draft him, right? I feel like
I'm pretty sure
that makes sense. Yeah,
but the guy can't tackle. He has 12.5% missed tackle rate.
And he wants $15 million a year.
Oh my God! You'll just give it to dude. Byron Jones is a 2% missed tackle rate. The guy is
$18 million a year. It's only $3 extra million. It's
extra million.
Totally worth it.
And he's 27.
That's easy. Yeah.
27 years old. Like the guy's going to be a staple on defense for the next 4 or 5 years. He takes an entire side of the field. Think about this. Realistically, the Giants get, let's say theoretically the Giants get Byron Jones and Jadeveon Clowney, right? Jadeveon Clowney shuts down an entire side of the defense with his length. He's a great edge setter, run blocker, run defender, and can rush the passer. And then you have Byron Jones, who shuts down the number one receiver. If you have two guys that can shut down, aside in the line of scrimmage and in the secondary, you're looking pretty good just in terms of, I want DeAndre Baker covering and shadowing number 2 wide receivers. I do not think he's ready to handle a Michael Thomas or OBJ or any of these guys that they will eventually face off against. And that's really what Patrick Graham has to do here. I don't know what Patrick Graham's going to bring to this defense. The Dolphins secondary, he was with the Dolphins last year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, They got torched. I mean, in the second half of the year, they looked a little bit better. We saw them actually pick it up, and they played hard. They were resilient, I'll add, but they
lost their best players too. They lost Minka and Xavier Howard too, I believe. Yep. So he had nothing to work with, basically.
Exactly, and they still put up some good performances. And that's really what we're hoping for, is that he can inspire these players. I think he's an Ivy League guy too. Is he from Yale? I think he's from Yale.
I think Stanford.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, so he's a really smart guy. Judge is bringing in coaches that are going to inspire people, inspire these players, and really bring the most out of them. That's the most important part, is that Judge is, building a foundation of a coaching staff that essentially is going to come in and make players the best they can be. And that's really what we're hoping for, because Shurmur, he took Saquon Barkley out of the equation last year. He was running him right up the gut. Wayne Gallman just got benched. They just brought in Javorius Allen out of nowhere. I'm like, what happened to Wayne Gallman? I know Mike hit on this a few episodes ago, and it's like Wayne Gallman just disappeared, right?
Yeah, it was weird. Yeah, I personally don't get it. I mean, back to DeAndre Baker, though, I did see some positive signs from him after Janoris Jenkins was cut. I specifically remember him against Devontae Parker, who had a breakout year. Did a nice job on him. I think Parker might have got the best of him on a couple catches, but he had some really nice pass breakups in that game. So I do think Baker has all the talent in the world, but when you have your first-round rookie, I know he's picked at the end of the first round, but when your first-round rookie admits halfway through the season, oh yeah, I don't know the playbook, I mean, something's going on there. Why is no one teaching this guy? Why is he not getting it? So hopefully majority of it had to do with the coaching and James Betcher specifically, so hopefully DeAndre Baker can turn it around for 2020.
Right.
Yeah, and I think it did have to do with the coaching, because I know we've discussed before, it would be 3rd and 4, and Baker's 12 yards off the line of scrimmage playing zone, and it's an easy slant first down. And I'm really happy Joe Judge, he's really shown that he's no nonsense type of guy so far, and I don't think that DeAndre Baker's going to get away with that, or any of the rookies or anybody is going to get away with not knowing the playbook through the first half of the season under Joe Judge and his regime. Plus Patrick Graham, you mentioned it, Alex. Those Dolphins defensive players really fought for him and for Brian Flores as well, but they really did love their coaching staff, and I'm happy that Joe Judge is putting in a really solid staff of coaches that hopefully do teach these players how to fight hard and learn their playbooks, and I think they will. I think it's going to be a big year 2 for DeAndre Baker.
Yeah, and actually I'm thinking about this now, but think about the respect that Joe Judge has to go to Miami, go to Patrick Graham, who literally just switched teams but staying in the same role. And he's just like, yo, Patrick, want to come to the Giants? And Patrick's like, hell yeah, screw the Dolphins. And he just leaves. That says a lot to me about, the type of guy that Joe Judge is and the respect people have for him. And that is incredibly, motivating for a fan and, a writer like all of us are. It's really exciting to see that a guy like that can command, who he wants. He brought in, Jerry Shuplinski from New England, who's the quarterback coach for New England for years. He's worked with Tom Brady, Jacoby Brissett, Jimmy Garoppolo. And he's like, yo, Jerry, hop on the train. And he's like, yeah, absolutely, Joe. Screw Bill. And he just they just come to New York, no problem. That's really cool to see that he can influence guys in that way, and the people believe in him. Like, he's going to come and establish something here, and I think I'm really excited to see, like, if he lands and he hits hard, Joe Judge could be here for the next 10 years. He could be like another dynasty like that, and I'm praying for it. Pat Shermer like really destroyed my spirits after the whole McAdoo thing. It's just like it's like just happening over and over and over again. I don't think I can handle much more. Like, guys, being a fan is hard enough, but writing about it every day is really difficult. Like writing, Giants lose, Giants get scraped. Who are they going to get in the draft this year? They have the 4th overall pick, the 6th overall pick, the 2nd overall pick. I love draft time because we get a really good player, but the entire season's like just a hell on earth. So
I know how you feel. Like, some people get mad at me in the comments. They're like, "Oh, you're too pessimistic." I'm like, "What am I supposed to be happy about?" Like, I'll be predicting. I predicted the last 2 years that they won't make the playoffs, and then I got people like, "Oh, they're gonna go 11-5 this year." I'm like, I personally don't see that happening, and like, I hope next year is different based off the coaching staff. But it was pretty easy to tell last year they probably weren't gonna make the playoffs. This should be a rebuilding team, and finally our GM realized it. So hopefully that's what actually happens from here on out.
One can only hope.
One can only hope, guys. But that's it for Fireside Giants today. I want to thank you guys all for tuning in, and thanks to Mike and Anthony for being here. Please hit the subscribe button below, and make sure to give us those reviews on iTunes and Spotify and everything, because it means a lot to us, and we are going to be trying to produce more and more and more for you guys, especially the draft profiles. Anthony, you did an incredible one on Isaiah Simmons. Please go check that out on YouTube. It's really, really good. The comments have been fantastic so far, and you'll learn a lot about him and what he's going to bring to the Giants if they elect to go that route. But thank you again so much for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next time.